Welcome to Cut Out the Middleman, a guide to entrepreneurship, written and narrated by Eric Heckstall. The purpose of writing this book is to educate people cutting hair in bathrooms, basements, kitchens, and for barbers working in shops without a license. Two of my goals are to stress the importance of obtaining a license for their career advancement and to provide inspiration to those with a vision to be more than a barber. I also wrote this book to speak to the customers. Without you, there would be no us. Working over 20 years in the cosmetology industry, I've realized there's a lack of understanding the important role a barber holds in society. Sure, people love their barbers and hold them in high esteem, but somehow there's a darker side to the industry that doesn't give us the credit we deserve. Cutting hair is an art, and art is rarely recognized until they're dead. However, I believe this important role was recently realized during the COVID-19 pandemic. Many men suffered when barbershops were forced to close due to social distancing rules. There are many reasons clients love to visit the barbershop. Barber stories are exciting to the listener. Our services build self-esteem, and our shops are a place of refuge and sharing. Other reasons may be because anything and everything goes down in the barbershop. Or maybe it's because you can be whoever you want to be and not have to be politically correct when you're inside the barbershop. I am an avid reader. I purchase books from Barnes & Nobles, Amazon, Audible, iBooks, and local bookstores. I have yet to come across a book on barbering. It's almost like an elephant in the room. Everyone knows we exist, however, no one is writing about us. So I decided to. I hope this book delivers insight, entertains, and serves as a guide to anyone that dreams of taking the next step but has no idea what that step should be. Many clients have left parts of themselves with me. I use those relationships and experiences to write this book. I love and thank all of you. Most of all, I thank the Creator for guiding me and giving me knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. Enjoy. Do not go where the path may lead, but go where there is no path and leave a trail. Ralph Waldo Emerson. Chapter 1. The Inception. My first experience at the barbershop was with my grandfather. I was between 4 and 5 years old. We would get up at 5 a.m. and go to the little shack on the side of a country road in Windsor, North Carolina. It would still be dark outside, and we would be the only ones parked in front of the shack, waiting for the barber. He lived in a house up the hill from the shop and would come down, open the shop, turn on the heat, and then go back up the hill to his house for breakfast or to finish getting ready. He wore dress pants, a wife beater, and suspenders. There was an old cast iron wood stove with a chimney, one barber chair, and a wooden bench for customers to sit. We would either wait in the car or go into the shop and wait for him to return. Generally, by the time he returned, other customers had arrived. Even then, we would always be the first ones on his list. We both had simple haircuts. I don't think he even asked my grandfather what type of haircut either of us wanted. He simply cut our hair down really low, lined it up, and that was that. Afterwards, my grandfather gave him $3 or $4, and we left. I hated getting up early Saturday mornings, but there was something special about spending that time with my grandfather, just him and I. It was a guy thing. Summer visits to the South were always fun. My cousins lived there, and we were always making up some type of game to play. As time went by, the era of the afro set in, and I didn't get my hair cut for what seemed like years. Then one day, my mom sent me to the barbershop, and everything that I had remembered about it went out the door. First off, we lived in Atlantic City, New Jersey, a long way from a wooden shack on the side of a road in Windsor, North Carolina. This barbershop was different. There were just a few barbers working, but the atmosphere was rumbling. People were coming in for haircuts, selling merchandise, and others were just hanging out. Music was playing, and all the barbers were fresh to death. I sat there in amazement while watching all the interactions. It was mind-blowing. I was trying to take in everything that was going on, from the conversations between the people and watching the barbers cut hair, to the negotiations with the boosters. It was too much for me to grasp. I loved it. When it was my turn, the barber pointed to me, and I got up and went over to his chair. I remember saying to myself, man, I wanted to go to the other guy, but I didn't know how things worked, and I didn't have the courage to say no. I'm waiting for him. He asked, how do you want it? I wanted to go to the other barber because of the way he cut the other guy's hair. Fortunately, the guy was still lingering by the door, so I pointed at him and said, I want it like that. He said, "Okay," and proceeded to cut my hair. I was so excited to see how my hair would look when it was done. I was enjoying the cut, but I just wanted him to finish so I could see it. After about 20 minutes, he brushed me off with the powder and sprayed some alcohol on my neck and forehead. Finally, he showed me a mirror. I was shocked. The cut didn't look anything like the other guys. I was so disappointed. He asked, "How do you like it?" I reluctantly replied, "It's good," all the while feeling like this is all wrong. He took the cape off me. I got up, paid him, and left. I didn't understand at the time, but later learned that the texture of hair, the shape of a person's head, and the symmetry of their hairline are major determinants of how a haircut will look on a person. Technically, we did have the same haircut. However, we didn't have the same texture of hair, so it looked different on me. From age 9 to about 13, my father cut my hair. He had the home set that he brought from Kmart. It wasn't a full set of clippers, that was just a name. The set came with one clipper, a pair of scissors, a comb, 4 guards, a small brush, and a small tube of oil. My father was not a barber, but like lots of fathers, he cut my hair. Many fathers cut their sons' hair as a rite of passage, or others do it to bond, while some simply do not have the resources to send their sons to the barbershop on a consistent basis. My father didn't like the atmosphere of the barbershop. I also believed that he was being cheap. By the time I turned 13, I had enough of my father cutting my hair. One day he asked if I wanted a cut. I said, "Nah, Dad, you can't cut my hair anymore." I was growing up. Styles were changing. And to be honest, he couldn't cut well. A guy named Bill cut a couple of my friends' hair before and did a decent job. One day Bill was cutting my friend's hair while I watched, and I asked him to cut mine. He said, "Okay, $5. I was like, "What?" I knew he wasn't charging my friend, but I needed a cut, so I said, "Okay." I was a little upset, but I also knew that we were not like that, meaning he wasn't my friend, he was a friend of my friend. He gave me a cut, and I was satisfied. He was a few years older than me. It was then that I realized if he could do it, I can do it. The next time I needed a cut, I got my father's clippers from the closet, went into the bathroom, and cut it myself. I chipped myself up the first few times, but I noticed that I was getting better. I offered to cut my friend's hair for free so that I could get more practice, and they were cool with it. The thing about cutting hair is you just have to do it. All the theory in the world will not teach you how to cut. Cutting is feeling what works. You have to practice and learn the many different textures of hair and which techniques that work for you. One of the biggest obstacles is getting over the fear, and there are many fears associated with the trade. One thing for sure is once you've started a cut, you can't put the hair back. I had to get over the fear of making mistakes. I learned from them. Just like anything else, we do not learn from the experience, we learn from reflecting on the experience. Through repetition, I became better and better. One day, one of my friends came by to chop it up and mentioned the owner of a new barbershop downtown had seen my work and liked it. He asked if I wanted a job. I was ecstatic. I gave my boy a fresh cut right then and said, "Let's go see him." We arrived at the barbershop, and the owner was a middle-aged Muslim brother. The interview was very simple. He looked at my man's hair and asked, "Did you do that?" I replied, "Yes." He then asked, "Do you have all your tools?" I said, "No." He replied, "Don't worry about that. You want a job?" I said, "Yeah, but I'm in 8th grade, and I have school." He said, "Don't worry about that. You can work on the weekend." He told me that he opened at 7:30 a.m. on Saturday and to come at that time. I agreed, and my friend and I left. Saturday morning, I was there, bright and early. I brought the tools I had, which wasn't much. I had a wall-adjustable fader, 1 pair of Anders T outliners, and some guards. Raheem, the owner, had a whole set laid out for me. A pair of Masters, 76ers, 3 detachable blades, a pair of fast feed, scissors, a cape, combs, and some neck strips. I was ready to go. As I looked over the new set of clippers, he told me that I could work them off. I said, "No problem." The first day I made around $300. I gave most of it to Raheem to pay for the clippers and kept a few dollars for myself. I was surprised. I had a job, I had money in my pocket, and I had a new set of clippers. I was on my way. The second week at the shop, Raheem pulled me to the side and complimented my skills. You can cut, but you have to get your speed up. At home, I took my time cutting here in the basement, but now I was in a business where customers don't have much time. They come and go at a very fast pace. Raheem offered to teach me some techniques to increase my speed. The techniques not only increase my speed, but improve my cuts overall. Cutting in barbershops versus cutting at home is very different. New barbers have many concerns and fears. Working in a barbershop is much like working as a performing artist. People are attentively watching your every move, and it can be intimidating when you've just started a career. You have to avoid the glares by zoning them out and focus on the work. A huge concern is customer satisfaction. Generally, a customer visiting the shop for the first time needs more attention. The reason is quite simple. You are learning about a person's hair as you are cutting it. You will begin to learn what looks good on them. Cutting a new customer is like painting on a blank canvas. It doesn't mean that the cut won't come out nice. It just means that the more you cut their hair, the better result you obtain. Repetition allows you to go through the different blades and techniques while building speed and agility. Another concern and stressful component are cutting kids' hair. Most people are more apt to let you cut their kids' hair before you can experiment on them. Barbers usually start out having a core clientele of children, and as they gain more experience and develop a reputation, they acquire more adult clientele. I always say, when cutting kids, you're earning your stripes. Kids between the ages of 2 and 6 can be very challenging for a few reasons. First, separating them from their parent can be difficult, so some parents sit in the chair with their child, which makes things a bit awkward. Second, they have to get past the buzzing sound of the clippers, especially near their ears. Third, kids often move and squirm around in the chair. A kid that's giving you problems can turn a 20-minute cut into a 45-minute cut. There have been times where I felt like I had just left the gym because I was sweating bullets when I was done. If a parent brought a kid into the shop that I knew was a problem, I would take my time with whoever I was cutting so that he would have to go to Raheem. The funny part is, I think once we both recognized those particular kids, we would slow up trying to wait each other out. I'd look up and see him looking my way, trying to make eye contact. We never spoke about it, but we both knew what was going on. You must see yourself as something before you can become it. Anonymous. Chapter 2, Gifted Hands. 3 years passed and I had made a name for myself. Raheem started calling me Hex because of my last name, Heckstall. I was the youngest barber in the city. Some even called me a prodigy considering I was so young. The styles were changing. The high top fade and the Gumby fade were really popular because of rappers like Will Smith, Big Daddy Kane, Kid and Play, Tupac, and Kwame. Their presence on TV allowed those artists to become trendsetters and poster boys for haircuts in the urban community. It didn't stop with the flat top. To make a statement, you had to have some crazy parts to go along with your fade. This is where I really got creative. Some of the older barbers I knew were artists, so they had an edge on me. They could draw. Not to say cutting isn't an art, it's just a different kind of art. Some guys were blessed with both skills. They were really good at drawing and painting. They were able to transfer their craft from the pencil and paint can to the clipper. Customers would ask for designs that were popular like the Nike swoosh, the Air Jordan logo, or their name. If they needed help choosing a style, I would look in magazines and books for inspiration, or start a sketch on paper, and then let my imagination do the rest. I never finished the sketches, I just used them as a point of reference. From there, it was like connecting the dots. Like anything, the more you practice, the better you become. Repetition is the mother of skill. After a while, I was so good at designs, I could put one in my own hair. You will need at least 2 mirrors if you attempt this. Fading basically means that your hair clippers taper from the base of your hairline to the top, and it could be as close to the skin as you want. It is best when the hair is clean and dry. When fading, it's all about the blend. It has to be tight. There are many types of fades, and the art is creating the fade that looks best on the customer and removing all the lines so that each level seamlessly fuses with the next. The types of fades are high fade, medium fade, low fade, taper, or bald fade. Sure, the customer usually knows what type of fade he or she wants, whether they bring a picture or look at a poster in the shop. It's your job to match the fade with the shape of his or her head and face. For example, if my client has a round face and low points, I would use the points to guide me whether to drop the fade in the back or raise it up above or below the occipital bone, the bone that forms the back base of the skull. Points are the front corners of the hairline. Fading is a technique that requires establishing even lines with blades of different sizes and shading those lines into each other. Sounds easy, right? Wrong. The thing about a fade is that it must be even all the way around. You can choose to fade up or fade down, whichever you feel the most comfortable with. That means you can start from the top line and blend it out, or you can start from the bottom line and blend it out, whichever makes the job easier and works with the texture of the hair. Either way, it must be even. One stroke too high could start the process over, meaning with one stroke, you have raised the fade, and regardless of where you are in the process, now that line must be blended to the new level, all the way around the head. It takes practice and patience. I could look at a fade and automatically tell if a master barber did it or not. Combing is done mainly to keep the hair from tangling. Curly hair is difficult to comb. When combing, start from the tip and work your way down to the roots to remove tangles. On the other hand, brushing stimulates the release of natural oils from your hair and is usually performed after combing to remove tangles. It can also massage the scalp to promote circulation in the area. A boar bristle brush works well to achieve this. Brushing or combing through each stroke clears away loose hair so you can see the blending develop step by step. There becomes a synthesis between the clipper and the comb going on as if they were dancing with one another. A hair clipper, most commonly known by the apparent plural hair clippers, in a similar way to scissors, is a specified tool used to cut hair. It works on the same principle as scissors, but is different from scissors and uses blades. Using a brush or a comb is merely a matter of choice. However, if someone has chemicals or grease in their hair, I suggest using a brush to get as much of it out as possible. Any type of oil in the hair makes the job more difficult. I suggest advising your customers to wash their hair before the cut if you don't provide the service at your facility. One of my most valuable lessons when learning how to tighten my fades was to use a mirror on the wall. The mirror is not just for the customers to see the finished service. It serves as a tool for the barber to see what the naked eye cannot. Even with 20/20 vision, the mirror will show you things that are not visible when looking directly at the cut. As you're cutting your client, turn the chair to whichever angle you want and look into the mirror. It'll give you the feedback necessary for improvement. It is important that barbers focus on fading, as most of your haircuts will have some type of fade. Your client base will be a reflection of your skill set and the amount you're able to charge. Prices fluctuate depending on the design. So say you just want a single part. I would throw that into the regular price of the cut, but 2 parts or more would change the price point. The cost of the design should always be discussed before you start the haircut. Sometimes customers don't understand the amount of work that goes into creating a certain design. I've had mothers ask for far-out designs on young kids, and when I told them the cost, they immediately said, "Oh no." They've even given me looks like, "How dare you charge that amount for a kid?" What they didn't understand is that the kid's age has nothing to do with it. It's the amount of work that goes into the cut. Time is money, and some designs take more time than others. This is something barbers have to consider when accepting an idea that a customer brings. If one design takes you the amount of time it takes to cut 2 people, then I suggest you charge the equivalent. When setting your prices, here are a couple of things to consider. 1, the number of barbershops in your city. 2, what does your market price dictate? 3, are you an okay barber or are you a great barber? In 2006, barbershops in my area were charging around $10 for kids and $15 for adults. Some shops were charging less than that. I decided that my services were worth more, so I charged $15 for kids and $25 for adults. It seemed like all hell broke loose. There was a lot of talk. Some said, "You're making a mistake." Others said, "Oh, you're going to lose on this one." But I had faith in me. I was willing to take a chance and push the envelope. I did lose some customers, but they were replaced by others. That was my lesson in understanding that there are customers at every level. If your customers find value in your services, they will pay your price. Excellence is habit. Aristotle. Chapter 3. Quality versus quantity. Quality and quantity are two commonly encountered terms, especially in business, research, physics, and even everyday life. The main difference between quality and quantity is the fact that quality refers to the features or characteristics of something, and quantity refers to the numerical value of something. Quality is subjective, and quantity is not. Quality depends on everyone's opinion. The key difference in quality is the measure of excellence or a state of being, and quantity is the extent or size of something. Some barbers like to cut fast, getting people in and out. They don't focus on the precision of the cut. It's all about the quick buck. They treat customers like they're on an assembly line. Don't get me wrong, speed is essential in this business, but I've always prided myself on perfection. I was taught that no cut is perfect, however, I still strive for it. Service cannot be measured in definitive quantitative terms. They are a blend of qualitative and quantitative factors that contribute to the overall experience. The value of the service is generally determined after the occurrence and graded upon each individual's personal perspective and opinion. There are several kinds of shops. There's the community barbershop, where most people know each other. This type of shop generally consists of people who grew up or lived in the neighborhood, hence community. Some went to school together, while others meet in the shop and over years develop relationships. Not to say that people that are not from the area don't travel to these shops, because they do. People will travel far and wide for great service, although at this type of shop, you can generally find the usual suspects on any given day. They're the mascots of the shop. When they have downtime, they come by the shop. When they want to get out of the house away from the wife and kids, they come by the shop. Or sometimes just passing by and noticing someone's car, they stop by the shop. These customers are like family, and over time it becomes more than a business relationship. Then there are the shops that reside inside the main vein of the city. Examples: Main Street, Central Ave, or downtown. Many of the major cities that I've seen have one or all of these streets, generally in the mix of bigger business. A lot of times, those shops are jam-packed because of the location and the traffic. The busier the shop, the faster you have to cut. The worst feeling is watching someone cut 3 heads and you're still on the same one, unless that one head is paying you the cost of 3. It becomes competitive, but not in a malicious way. I have worked in a shop where competition turned into disrespect. Generally, when that happens, it's time to ask that person outside to sort things out. In that same shop, we kept a pair of boxing gloves for times when guys had issues that got a little out of control. Whoever had a problem would invite the other person to the gloves in the back of the shop. That way, they could get off whatever tension that was on their chest and not disrupt business. It was highly effective. Usually, after someone had a session with the gloves, they were fine. It created newfound respect for each other. Not to say that they liked each other after, but they respected each other. In a few cases, guys became best of friends after releasing that negative energy. In other cases, a busted lip or a black eye was sometimes hard to get over, especially when guys joked about it. So if you're not the competitive type, smaller shops are probably a better fit. There will be situations where you have to decide what's important to you, quality or quantity. Cutting fast to keep up is one thing, but at the end of the cut, if you're not happy with your work, then you're doing yourself and the client a disservice. Walk-in customers frequently visit these types of shops. They're generally not picky when it comes to who cuts their hair. They typically bounce around from shop to shop, barber to barber. With them, it's all about convenience, minimal loyalty. They may have a designated barber, but many times they don't really care. They just want a haircut, and when they finally make it back to their so-called barber, they always have a story about why they haven't been to see him or her. The story always ends with, I had this or that going on, and I was in such and such, and I just needed a cut. And then you end up fixing their pushback hairline or treating the bumps from dirty clippers or restructuring the cut so that it suits the shape of their head and face. The franchise barbershop is just a business model where the service happens to be cutting hair. There's a blueprint of how much time the technicians, barbers, stylists should spend on a customer. They have stricter policies, usually pay their barbers a salary or hourly, and work in shifts. In my opinion, those types of shops are marketed towards the person who needs a haircut, but does not have any personal connection to a barber or stylist. I say that to say they don't know anyone personally that provides the service they're looking for. They see a big sign inside of some plaza or strip mall, and boom, that's their invitation. I'm not here to say that any type of shop is better than the other. It really boils down to what works for you and your lifestyle. I have worked in the community barbershop and the high traffic shops, and I have to say, I prefer the community shop. Barbers are pillars of the community, and having that connection to the people helps me to keep a pulse on what's really going on in the community. It is important that you invest in yourself, expand your horizons, and provide your customers with the best experience possible. Today's marketplace offers a wealth of choices of products and services. Your continued education in your trade is imperative to your growth and development in an ever-evolving industry. Workshops and conventions are great for learning about new and innovative products as well as techniques. YouTube is another enormous platform for learning this industry and the direction it's going. There are a plethora of barbers showcasing their talents, their tools of preference, products of choice, and walking you through step-by-step how to create the cut you desire. Be creative, try different products, and keep your tools sharp, lubricated, and disinfected. People pay attention to the details. They're always looking, even when you don't think they are. So creating a system of organization will allow you to handle business without thinking about it. It will become second nature. Your subconscious will take over because you have formed a habit. This brings me back to sterilizing your tools. This is very important to the quality of your work. That means before each cut, you must spray each of the tools you intend to use. It is not necessary to spray each one at the same time, but as you pick them up to use, make it a habit to spray them first. I have been to shops where barbers had hair caked upon their clippers from the last cut and would pick them up and start cutting the next client. I've even had to stop barbers in their tracks and tell them to spray their clippers before they start to cut my hair. I urge you to take disinfection and sanitation very seriously. Germs are easily spread from one person to another person's hair. Each of these aspects will increase the quality of your service. We may define therapy as a search for value. Abraham Maslow. Chapter 4. Therapy. There's something about being a pillar of the community. People know that they can rely on you. They can trust you. The person that needs a haircut because he's been sick and doesn't have the money, or has a job interview and says, "I'll pay you as soon as I get my first check." Those are the times where bonds are built. A bond that expands beyond dollars and cents. There are also the people that come in to borrow a few dollars because they haven't eaten. Sure, you have booth rent to pay. Or if you're an owner, you have the rent, utilities, and marketing expenses, not to mention the bills in your personal life. Honestly, I don't know if those in need ever consider these things, but you become someone they can count on. They know that you operate a cash business, so you usually have some cash on hand. I've been in business for over 20 years, and I've seen a lot. You never really know what someone's going through unless they share it. I had a client some years ago that used to bring her sons to the shop. She had 3 boys, and she was a single parent. Sean, her oldest son, would come on his own, but she would bring Stephen and Logan, as they were the 2 youngest. One of her sons struggled with ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. Children with ADHD may be hyperactive and unable to control their impulses. One day she brought the boys in for a cut, and as we were talking, I asked how she was doing. She replied, "I'm on the edge." I can't remember exactly what I said to her, just some words of encouragement and motivation, letting her know that she was doing a great job and things were going to be all right. I really didn't think much of it. I didn't see her again until about a year later when I ran into her in the Walgreens pharmacy. She saw me in the aisle, walked over and gave me a big hug. A hug that was tighter than the average, haven't seen you in a while hug. We embraced, and when she let go, she said, "I want to thank you." I was thrown aback for a second while I processed what was happening. I said, "For what?" And she said, Remember that day at the shop? The last time I brought the boys? Well, you saved my life. I was blown away. That was the last thing I expected to come out of her mouth. She went on to tell me how bad things were at that time, and that she was on the verge of killing herself. But my words had given her the strength to keep going. She went on to say that she was in a better space now. I was honored that I had been the voice of reason. At that moment, I attained a true understanding of the impact of words. They do have the power of life and death. As I mentioned earlier, it becomes more than just the business of cutting hair. You are influencing people's lives. Outside looking in, someone may say, it's just a haircut, but it's so much more than that. It's an experience. A haircut is an esteem booster, a confidence builder. There's nothing like looking in the mirror after a cut and the feeling it gives you. Ask anyone who just got a fresh cut. If you want to be a successful barber, you have to have a great attitude. Your attitude will make the difference in whether you fail or succeed in all endeavors of life. People take pride in calling you their barber. Behind that chair, I've learned how to be compassionate, understanding, and empathetic to others. People have shared some of the strangest stories about their lives with me. Their deepest, darkest secrets, things they wouldn't tell their spouse, brother, or best friend. They trust that when sharing, it's a judgment-free zone, and that your response will be completely objective. Learning how to listen is also very important to your success as a barber. It's a skill that takes practice. When people come into the barbershop, they can express how they see the world, share their perspectives. A place where politics are debated, current events are discussed, and alter egos come alive. There's a great deal of pain in urban communities, and not enough knowledge or access to professional mental health services. Barbershops have been a place of refuge where men can go vent and get feedback on personal as well as work-related issues. The barber is the nucleus, but everyone plays a part when politicking is in order. Many walks of life share similar issues. We learn from the youngest to the oldest. Each of them has something different to teach. Young men are able to receive life lessons that hopefully help them navigate through the pitfalls, and older men learn firsthand how our youth are evolving, how they see life in this ever-changing world of technology and innovation. Most men tend to suppress their emotions in fear of appearing weak or vulnerable, but when conversations get deep, emotions flare, and hidden insecurities reveal themselves. So far, I've spoken from the side where the barber is the therapist, but there's a flip side to that coin. The barber is also a sponge, taking on a wealth of information and emotions. He or she has to learn how to compartmentalize it all. If not, things can become overwhelming. When people are going through something and they confide in you, a piece of it stays with you. Imagine all these small pieces of hurt, shame, fear, doubt, and guilt that are shed, coupled with your own. If one is not able to find balance, those small weights can and will become a burden. 3 things that trump it all are faith, hope, and love. As a barber, you must keep hope alive, for you as well as your people. Remember, this is your community, and you are a pillar. So where does the barber go to find peace and balance? Consistently feeding the mind, body, and soul are imperative to your mental, physical, and spiritual health. For the mind, reading self-help books, listening to podcasts, and motivational YouTube series daily. It helps to keep your focus and exercise the brain. Remember, it is a muscle. As for the body, a walk in the park, hitting the gym, practicing yoga, or playing your favorite sport helps to keep you physically fit. The body needs to remain fit in order to endure long hours on your feet. Standing in the same spot for hours will take a toll on the body over time, so the last thing you want to do is skimp on exercise and footwear. Invest in a good pair of sneakers with functional support. Barbers that have a large clientele rarely get to sit down or eat. Once his or her day begins, it's game time. Scheduling breaks is up to the barber. Me personally, I like to work straight through my day because once I sit down, I have to build up the momentum all over again. For the soul, I suggest you meditate and pray regularly. Primarily when you first wake up to start your day and right before you go to sleep at night. Making time during the day to give thanks and having a moment with your Creator is great too. Meditation works magic in all areas. It clears the mind of the junk and opens you up to dimensions you were never conscious of. We are bombarded with so much information. It is important to filter what to keep and what to throw away. That may not be as easy as it sounds. It takes longer to build a skyscraper than a chicken coop. Earl Nightingale. Chapter 5. Mind your business. One of the first things I tell barbers when I hire them is to be consistent. Consistency is everything in business and your personal life. Every barber in the shop will not have the same level of talent, and that can be intimidating to those who are not as sharp as others. You don't have to be the best, but you have to be consistent. Building clientele takes time and patience. I remember what felt like the worst day of my career when I came home from college and went back to the old shop where I started. Raheem had hired a new guy. He was young, and he could cut. It was a Thursday, and as the customers walked in, I asked, "Need a cut?" As was normal practice. One by one, they replied, "I'm waiting for him," as they pointed to Raheem or Vernon. I understood the business, so I didn't sweat it at first, but after half the day, I was beginning to get frustrated. I sat the whole day. I didn't cut one head. I was devastated. This had never happened to me before. It was a direct blow to my ego. I knew that I could cut. I was once the man in the same shop. How could this be? I was hurt and confused at first, but some time had passed since I had been there working on a regular schedule. There were a host of new customers that I didn't know, and more importantly, didn't know me. It was a major lesson in humility. The next day, I cut a few clients, and the day after, a few more, until it was business as usual. People had to see my work. They are loyal to their barber. Well, most are. Generally, you can build your clientele one of a few ways. People will see your work while waiting for another barber. Then, one day they'll decide to tell their regular barber they're going to give you a shot. A lot of times, the transition starts by sending their kids to you first. Remember when I mentioned that children will more than likely be your first clients? How it happens is there are usually a couple of people in front of them, and they realize they can get a comparable cut without the wait. The next way the one gets their weight up, clientele, is the walk-in. Most walk-ins look for the first available barber. They just want to cut. Walk-ins don't know who is who and really doesn't matter to them. Don't get me wrong, a walk-in can turn into one of your regular customers. Some walk-ins are looking for a barber to call their own. As your clientele grows, they'll tell their friends and family. This is the referral system. Note, most of your core business will come from referrals. When I started cutting, my business was on a first-come, first-served basis. As my business grew, and after a couple of arguments about who was next, I created a better system. It becomes very difficult to keep track of who's next when people were moving around and going in and out of the shop. I grew a large client base and could easily have 10 to 15 people waiting at a time. So I created a sign-in sheet. When you came for a cut, you would have to sign your name. It allowed customers the opportunity to see how many people were in front of them, and the other benefit was that you could leave and do whatever you needed to as long as you were back by the time I got to your name. My policy was, if I get to your name and you were not present, I would cross it out, and you have to sign the list again. That worked smoothly for a few years, but as my life, as well as most Americans, became busier, I reassessed my business and decided to bring my customers more value. I let go of the sign-in sheet and moved to appointments only. The price point went up, but it was something I believed would be a win-win. The customers would have an exact time for service, which meant no wait time, and I would be able to schedule my day. In the beginning, I was setting the appointments. They would call or text me to see what was available, and I would check my schedule and book their appointment. This method was okay, but it started to encroach on my time as well. I had become a part-time secretary. Then, one day a friend of mine suggested that I use an app called Booksy. I had seen the advertisements for the app, but it was new, and I wanted to make sure the kinks were out, and that it could handle my workload. About 6 months after he mentioned it, I gave it a shot. The app gave my clients the autonomy to control their dates and times that worked for them, and I was given alerts via email, real time, letting me know who booked and when. The process of going from first come, first served to appointments only took me years to build. It doesn't have to be the case today. We have technology that was not available when I started. Making that type of shift will still require you to have a client base that supports an appointment-only platform. You don't want to say you cut by appointment only and don't have enough people to fill your schedule. You will end up sitting around, waiting for people to show. When you see that you have a serious overflow, that's when you consider working more efficiently. Social media is a great marketing tool. It has created platforms that allow barbers to promote their work and bring awareness to who they are as a barber and as a person, marketing themselves to a level that supersedes word of mouth. Now let's talk about discipline. I've seen many barbers fail because of lack of discipline. Like the mailman, he or she delivers rain, sleet, hail, or snow, right? So does the successful barber. Bad weather should not stop you from showing up. Now, if the governor calls a state of emergency, then keep your in the house. But anything less, get to it. Keep your schedule, and most of all, communicate with your customers. When building a business, you are also building trust. Your customers trust that you will be open the hours that you say you are, regardless of the situation. It is very easy to lose a customer early in your career, and that doesn't mean the customer will go to another shop. They'll usually go to another barber in the same shop before they have to go elsewhere. You'll come to work and find a client in another barber's chair because you were late, or when you finally see him or her again, the conversation will go something like this. Haven't seen you in a minute. Oh, I let so-and-so cut me the last time you weren't here. One too many of those, and you've lost your client. This is where discipline meets consistency. They're very good friends and work together. I've mentioned consistency, trust, and discipline. Let me tie them together with a scenario so you get a greater understanding. Scenario: it's 2 a.m. and your child is crying and running a fever. Everything is closed except the local 24-hour convenience store. You drive to the store only to find it closed. You immediately become upset because you trusted that they would be open. The sign says 24 hours. You leave and travel to the next available convenience store, buy the medicine, and return home. My question to you is, how likely are you to patronize the first store again? If you continue to support the store, there will always be reasonable doubt. It is important to see yourself as the customer in order to provide the best customer service possible. There is a big difference between repeat business and loyalty. Repeat business is when people do business with you multiple times. However, loyalty is when people are willing to turn down a comparable or better product, service, or price to continue doing business with you. Some say the Samsung Galaxy is better than the iPhone, but Apple has created a loyal following. People trust the brand, and that is exactly what you're building, your brand. Becoming a dad is one thing. Being a dad is many things. Stephen Chapman. Chapter 6, Fathers and Sons. I call this chapter Fathers and Sons because of the special bonding between fathers and sons within the barbershop. Fathers take pride in bringing their sons to the barbershop, the place where no membership is needed, yet everyone feels like a member. It feels like our own private country club. It takes a village to raise a child is an African proverb that we as a community embody. Fathers trust the environment and understand that the shop is a safe place to bring their sons, a place where their sons have an opportunity to learn from other men. I can't leave out the mothers. Traditionally, fathers would bring their sons to the shop, but I would have to say that I've seen just as many moms bring their sons as well, and many of them do so not because they want to, but because they have to. They often look uncomfortable while sitting and waiting. Moms are not there for conversation or to be heard. They're there for their child's haircut. Men tone it down when women are in the shop. A great debate or heated conversation can come to a screeching halt when a woman enters the room. It's a sign of respect for our women. It's understood by all. No one has to say anything or give a cue. It just happens. Many men have grown up in a single-parent household where it was the mom that took them to the barbershop. So that kid who comes in with his mom is simply a reflection of who they were when they were young. Kids will act differently depending on which parent they are with. Fathers have a tendency to want their sons to be like them, adding a little more bass in their tone, signifying the pride in having a son when introducing them. Many men have a tough exterior, so they raise their sons to be tough. Their son's response to a haircut is a reflection of who they are as a father, or how they will be perceived in the community. Mothers are nurturers, so boys will sometimes act like little babies, craving their mother's attention while getting their haircut. You have the mothers that sit back and let you do your job, and then there are the mothers that want to micromanage. They stand 2 feet away, watching your every move and making suggestions, all while their son is showing off and making things worse. The son makes it appear as though you're hurting him, or that he's uncomfortable, and she naturally becomes his protector. This can be very annoying. In this type of situation, it's best to politely ask her to have a seat and explain to her that he'll be fine. When I grew up, mothers didn't stand over the barber. They gave the barber total control of the experience. If you moved too much, the barber would grip your head like he was holding a baseball and squeeze it to let you know that he was in control and to stop moving. Only you and the barber knew he was squeezing your head tight. There's an art to it. Those small acts really work towards toughening up a kid. He has to make the decision to sit still and take a little pain from the clipper if they're sharp, or take the pain of someone squeezing your head along with the clipper. Back then, if you cried, your mom would tell you to be quiet and stop acting like a baby. Some moms still do. Fathers have a different approach. If their son starts moving around a lot and acting like it's hurting, they will usually let the barber handle it initially. But if the son continues, they quickly step in with a look and tone that says, knock it off. I've had fathers ask me to hold up for a moment, take their sons out of the chair to the bathroom, and well, you know the rest. When they came back to the chair, there were sniffles, but all the movement stopped. The old adage, it takes a village, is exercised in the barbershop. Boys hear stories from all walks of life and learn the do's and don'ts of life. Young guys talk about parties, dating, girls, and social media, whereas the older guys speak to work, families, relationships, politics, marriage, and the state of the culture. Between the ages, we tend to cover all bases. Technology is changing the culture. People spend a lot more time on their phones than communicating with each other. Many of the guys between 13 and 25 are on Instagram or Snapchat the whole time they're in the shop, in their own virtual world, disconnected from a lot of the conversations. Every now and then, they might look up to comment on someone's post, and that starts a whole new conversation, but then it's right back to it. I can't forget the video games. A lot of time, the younger kids are engaged in playing video games. A good friend of mine, John English, brings his son Ryan every 2 weeks. Ryan is hooked on a game called Fortnite. Ryan comes to the shop with an attitude every time he has to get a haircut. It's not that he doesn't like getting his haircut. He doesn't like having to leave home while playing Fortnite. So what Ryan will do is play 2K on his phone while at the shop. In essence, he is still feeding the stimuli of this video game fixation. Technology has also put some barriers between children and their parents. Hence, parents have to find a balance, otherwise they will find their children are consumed by virtual reality and cannot interact socially in the real world. It's so important to instill the values of keeping yourself groomed early on. Fathers should be the first teachers. As facile as it may appear, many of our young men do not know some of the simple things about good hygiene and staying groomed. It goes beyond a haircut. When a father brings his son in for a haircut during his formative years, that kid is capturing small bits of information that ultimately will aid in who he will become. The journey is better than the destination.
Rewind.
The journey is better than the destination. Anonymous. Chapter 7. Research and Development. Like any industry, when seeking to enter, one should do their research. When I decided it was time for me to move on from the shop I was working and open my own, I did it because of the amount of clientele I had and the experience of managing that shop. I knew what it took to make it run, and run well. With a background of over 10 years in the business and having dedicated more than 10,000 hours at that time, I had become a master barber. In Malcolm Gladwell's book, Outliers, he theorizes that in order to become a master at anything, you must devote at least 10,000 hours to it. I was seasoned to what the business entailed, but I wasn't licensed. I made the mistake of going out and finding a storefront, furnishing, and decorating my shop before I had my license. I put the cart before the horse. I had been operating under the radar for so many years that I was convinced that I really didn't need one. Within a year of opening, I was approached by the state board. For any barber or cosmetologist that has experienced this, you know the feeling when you see people with clipboards walking through your doors. It's one thing if you're not actually working at the time. You can pretend to be anyone. Act like you're a customer waiting for the barber. But if you're in the middle of a haircut, it's a terrible feeling. You don't know what they might say or do. They generally politely introduce themselves, ask who you are, and then commence to inspecting your business. After the inspection, you'll get a report of all the violations, if any. The first visit won't put you out of business. They will nicely give you a fine with deadlines to get repairs or licenses. However, if you do not comply, the fines become larger and larger until essentially you can't afford to be in business. When I received my first fine, I was furious. I just knew someone was hating on me and had called the state. If the former or latter were true or not, I had a conversation with myself and decided that if I was going to take my business seriously, I had to do things correctly. The following week, I enrolled in Concord Cosmetology School. At the time, the tuition was $16,000. The enrollment counselor let me know that I could apply for financial aid, so I did. She also expressed that the program was designed to take 1 year to complete if I was committed, although some people had stretched it out to 3 and 4 years, which I thought was absurd. I wanted to get in and get out. Every day that I missed would only extend my program. I knew that a year would go by fast, so I was diligent about my attendance. A year later, I was done with the program, but then I had to take the state exam. I was a bit reluctant and dragged my feet on setting my appointment to take the exam. I had heard rumors of how difficult the exam was. Also, you would have to bring a female model with you to demonstrate the multiple styles necessary to pass the practical part of the test. Once the practical part was done, then came the theory. This was an all-day exam. Even with all these thoughts going through my head, down deep I knew I had come too far not to see it through. I had this one client that would ask me about it every time he came to get a haircut. He'd be like, "So, how's everything? Did you take your state test yet?" He was like a nagging little mosquito. But in hindsight, I realized the Creator used him to push me to get it done. Along your journey in life, you will find that some people's purpose in your life is to push you to get to the next level. And a lot of times, they are the people you least expect. Sometimes they appear mysteriously, and others have been there the whole time, just in the background like an extra in a movie. One of my classmates kept in touch after we graduated. So one day I asked her if she knew someone that would let me do their hair for the exam. Note, women are very particular who they let do their hair, which was part of the reason I was procrastinating. I didn't know anyone who would let me experiment on them. To my surprise, she said sure, her cousin would do it for me. The day came to take my state exam. We met early that morning at the testing site, had a few words, and Larita's cousin and I walked to our designated area. I set up my tools and waited for further instructions. There were about 4 test monitors individually covering a particular area. One of them gave me instructions, and he announced the amount of time we had and that we were to start. The practical was difficult because I couldn't get a couple of styles to stay in place long enough for the examiner to grade it. I would pin it up and start working on the next style. Look, and the previous style had fallen. It happened a couple of times, which made me nervous because the clock was ticking. My luck, the examiner that was monitoring me was a person that understood right away that I was not a stylist, but a barber. He asked, "You're a barber, aren't you?" As he walked by, checking out my work and seeing that it didn't look as good as the girls I was testing with. I responded yes, and he nodded his head, as if to give me the seal of approval while writing something on his clipboard. An hour later, I was done. I was halfway home. The theoretical part was a breeze. I had studied long and hard, so I was prepared and confident that I would do well. I finished with about 45 minutes left to spare. I felt happy that it was over, but I still had this modest feeling of uncertainty. After the exam, I treated the ladies whom had helped me to Red Lobster, a small gesture of my appreciation. Weeks passed and I hadn't heard anything, and then about 2 months went by, and I received a letter from the State Board of Cosmetology. I was nervous as hell when I opened it. It read, "Congratulations, you have passed the State Board of Cosmetology exam. Please find your cosmetology license below." I can't describe the feeling of accomplishment I felt. I had completed it and done it the right way. The great thing about education is that once you have it, no one can take it from you. It's an investment in you. Never forget that. It always seems impossible until it's done. Nelson Mandela. Chapter 8. Faith. Trust your instincts. What is the percentage of people who quit after failing at something once? Would you believe there are more people who quit before failing even once? More people quit before they even start. I have a friend I call the Idea Man. He's full of ideas. However, he never takes action on any of them. Some of them are good, and some of them are great ideas, but they are just that, Ideas. You can have the greatest idea in the world, but if you never take action, it remains just an idea. Many will believe they don't have the resources to pursue their idea actively. They will come up with every excuse in the world why it won't happen. I beg to differ. As many of my mentors have iterated, start where you are. When I look back at some of my greatest accomplishments, I didn't have many resources. What I did have was a burning desire to achieve what I set my mind to. When I say a burning desire, I want you to understand what I mean. As an entrepreneur, outside of being motivated by change, money, and innovation, there's something inside that speaks to you, something that craves more than mediocrity, more than what society deems the norm. When I reflect on my life's journey, I realize that every undertaking I truly set my mind on has been a success. Even when I failed, I succeeded, because I was always able to take something away from the experience. I learned that I am the constant in each endeavor. With right thought, I am the master of my universe. God has given us freedom of mind, independence, and creativity. We all have a talent or talents that no one in the world is better than you. It is your job to identify what that is and nurture it to the best of your ability. I won't sit here and act as though things won't get tough or the fear won't invade your psyche at times of uncertainty. Times will get tough and fear will try to seep in. This is where faith comes into play. You will have to train your mind in the art of believing. It will be one of your most difficult tasks because you have to reprogram your mind. You have to see it in your mind before you're able to manifest it into the physical form. Once the decision is made to move forward, move and burn the ships behind you. There's no turning back. It is crucial that you consistently feed and nurture your mind with positive thoughts. Read self-help books or listen to audiobooks to nourish your subconscious mind. The subconscious is where the magic happens. It is the pipeline to the universe and is always at work, whether you're aware or not. As I mentioned earlier, prayer and meditation are also the key to learning who you are as a person. You are unique, so do not let external forces define who you are. The answers to who you are lie within yourself. Society says go to school, get a good education, and get a good job. What does your spirit say? Many of us cannot answer that question because we are inundated with noise. You may ask, what do I mean by noise? Noise is anything that can and will become a distraction to your agenda. Friends, family, social media, parties, television, and music can all be classified as noise if not balanced in your life. When you decide to become an entrepreneur, you have made the decision to do things differently than your peers. Entrepreneurship is a lonely path. Sure, there will be people surrounding you during your journey, especially when you are successful. It will appear as though you have all the friends in the world, but I'm here to tell you, they will not understand your journey. They will not understand what it takes to keep everything together. The late nights, early mornings, missing out on the cookouts and the parties, or showing up late just to find that all the food and drinks are gone and people are leaving. In this business, you make everyone look good. So when there's a holiday, graduation, wedding, or a party, it is you that will be working while everyone else attends. You have to ask yourself, are you ready for that level of sacrifice? And if you say yes, then strap up your boots. I'm a spiritual person. I don't subscribe to any religion, even though I have studied many of them. I believe in something greater than religion. I believe in a universal law, which has many components, with one of its greatest laws being cause and effect. Let's talk about this law and how it applies to you as a barber and entrepreneur. Tomorrow has no guarantees. Today we plant the seeds for tomorrow's harvest. Traditionally, barbering has been a cash business, so I've seen barbers make a nice amount of money on a good day and spend it all the same day, with the attitude, I'll make it back tomorrow. Wrong attitude. That is a hustle mentality, not a business mentality. That type of thinking will put you in the hole because tomorrow is not guaranteed. I'll speak more about this in the next chapter. Right now, let's focus on trusting your instincts and sowing good seed. There are many forces at work in this universe. Things are in constant motion. Nothing stands still. Either you're moving forward or you're moving backwards. Standing in the same place is like saying, I'm going to stop time for a minute so that I can catch up. Or I'm going to stop getting older for a year so that I will remain young. It simply can't happen. It is your job to discern which is happening in your life. Are you moving forward or backwards? The funny thing about moving forward or backwards is it's so gradual that you don't feel it all the time. One day you'll just wake up and have this epiphany and be like, damn, look where I am. You're either fucked up or you've made great strides. So it's important to periodically take self-assessments as well as assessing your business for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. There will be days where it feels like everything is falling apart, but just keep going. Train your mind to continuously tell yourself who you are, where you're going, and your plans of achievement. When times are really tough, it may seem hard to believe what you're telling yourself, but say it anyway. You must convince your subconscious mind that all these things are true. Understand that it takes time to shift your mindset. So I suggest writing down daily affirmations and repeating them every day, even 2 or 3 times a day. Evaluate your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, and then ask for guidance from forces that are higher than yourself. Now, believe. The angels or forces at work, whichever you like to call them, will periodically show up to let you know they are working with you on this. Your part is to recognize their presence, consult with them, and steady the course. He that believes in the impossible has little competition. Money is only a tool. It will take you wherever you wish, but it will not replace you as a driver. Ayn Rand. Chapter 9. Money Management. Times have changed when it comes to payment methods. Many barbershops still operate on a cash-only business, but shops that are innovative offer several methods of payment. Giving customers the preference to choose which form of payment they'd like to use is beneficial to you as well as the customer. My clients like to use Cash App, Apple Pay, credit and debit cards, and old-fashioned cash. Me having cash in my pocket makes it more liable that I'll spend it frivolously. I like that the money goes straight into my account. It saves me a trip to the ATM every night. The drawbacks are that some transactions take a couple of days to clear and transaction fees associated with swiping a card. There are 2 ways to handle the fees. You can either absorb the cost or pass it on to your customers. Most people understand and don't mind paying a little extra for the convenience. The advantage of having your money in the bank also makes it easy just to write a check or pay online when it's time to pay your rent or utilities when you own the business. If you are renting a booth, rent money is also already there when it's time to pay. As I mentioned earlier, I have seen too many barbers adopt the hustler's philosophy, believing that they can spend all they make today with no worries of what tomorrow may bring. Throughout my career, I have seen many grand openings turn into grand closings due to poor money management. Your business takes time to grow legs strong enough to support it. Give yourself at least 1 year to evaluate the necessary finances needed to keep the doors open and the lights on. Consider maintenance, such as keeping your place clean. Windows, bathroom, mirrors, stripping and waxing floors are areas that need constant attention. If you're not doing the work yourself, you'll need to hire someone to do it. You'll also want to have funding for marketing tools like business cards and flyers. Social media is a great tool that minimizes the cost of marketing, but wearable merchandise like t-shirts, sweatshirts, and hats are perfect for getting your brand out to the people. Customers will proudly wear your garments and help spread the word. Other costs like insurance and beauty products are more reasons why managing your money is important. New and improved tools hit the market all the time, and keeping up with the latest keeps your business going forward. New tools are also a great conversation piece. People like new. Weather is a factor, especially early in your career. Depending on where you live in the country, snow and heavy rain can be a deterrent for customers to come out and get a haircut. The days where the weather is bad won't affect you as much if you have been diligently managing your money. A major storm can cause a major storm for your business and your personal life. Earlier we talked about discipline. Managing your money will be one of those primary disciplines. Stay away from credit cards as much as possible. The interest will absorb your profits like a black hole. Instead, utilize a line of credit if needed, which is very different. One thing I never hear barbers talk about is retirement. People in other industries think about retirement on the front end. They know going in how much time they'll have to put in before they can even think about retirement. Is it that barbers don't believe in retirement? Or does it go back to treating your business like a hustle? Let me be clear. Time will pass. you will get older, and the business will take a toll on your body. As an entrepreneur, you have to take these things into consideration. My suggestion is set up an IRA, an individual retirement account. An individual retirement account is a tax-advantaged investment tool that individuals use to earmark funds for retirement savings. There are several types of IRAs. Do your research, see which one best fits for you. Individual taxpayers establish traditional and Roth IRAs, while small business owners and self-employed individuals establish SEP and simple IRAs. Life insurance is another expense that is often overlooked. It is not something that is talked about freely within the industry, but is of high importance. Many of you will have a family one day, if you don't already. And as much as we would not like to think about death, it is a reality. When that time comes, life insurance not only lifts the burden of services off your family, but it can be a catalyst for your children's future, clear any debt left behind, and give your family a sense of security. As a new barber, the things I mentioned can sound a little overwhelming, so start small. Take your time, and as your clientele builds, so should your structure. Business is always evolving, and it is up to you to innovate and adapt. I've talked a lot about paying everyone else, but what about you? Before you pay any of the expenses I mentioned, pay yourself. That's right, pay yourself first. Start by allocating 10% of your weekly salary or earnings to your personal savings. This money is yours to do with as you will. Many of you may be saying to yourself, 10% is not a lot of money, and you're right, but that 10% will add up over time. If you can afford to allot 20% and then 25%, it's up to you. The point is, for all the work you do, pay yourself as well. To illustrate some real figures, if you take $500 a week, that means $50 goes to you a week. That's $200 a month. So imagine $1,000 a week. That's $400 a month for you, and so on. I can't tell you where I'll be in 5 years, but in 5 years, I can tell you how I got there. Anonymous. Chapter 10. Ownership is priceless. There's a lot to be said about owning your own business. It's tough. The hours are long. You probably won't have a vacation for your first few years. The work doesn't stop when you leave the job. And dealing with all the different personalities can be challenging. But there are intangible rewards that cannot be expressed with words. To start, just turning the keys to enter your place gives you an enormous sense of pride. And when your customers celebrate you because of the value you bring to their lives, you understand that all of your hard work hasn't gone unnoticed. As the owner, you have to work when no one else will. I say this to say that it can be more challenging for the owner who is not a barber, because if there's ever a time you don't have anyone else to work for you, it will be difficult to sustain your business. I've known people to open shops that have no experience cutting hair, and I've watched them suffer when the people they thought would always be there for them weren't. Furthermore, life evolves. Very seldom will you keep the same staff the lifespan of your business. People come and go. Some stay longer than others, but never base the success of your business off another person. You will only set yourself up for disappointment. People, family and friends, will try to persuade you to take off and go to this or that event, say things like, "Come on, you're always working." Many times, I believe they are sincere and really want you to attend. Other times, I feel like you're being tested by the universe to see how dedicated you are to your business. If you're married, have a girlfriend or boyfriend, they will have to be understanding. The time it takes to nurture your business can put a strain on your relationship. Find the balance between the business and your family. Another thing is to set boundaries early. People have a tendency to correlate your personal relationship with them to your business relationship with them. Remember, business is business. You can choose to give your friends and family discounts to whomever you choose, but at the end of the day, you have a business to run. Set your hours of operation and abide by them. If you develop a reputation for not having any real structure to your business, people will treat you and your business accordingly. They will lose respect for you as a business owner. When it's time to pay, they will pay you what they want, instead of what your price list states, accompanied by an excuse. When it's time to close, they will come late and try to convince you to stay, just for them. Establishing structure from the beginning sets the tone. There will still be those that try your chin and think they can get over. But don't worry about that population. This is how some people live their lives. They have some weird sense of entitlement. You will lose some customers because of their sense of entitlement, but it's okay.
They will be replaced by someone who values your skill set and business etiquette. It hurts to lose a customer. Trust me, I know. You question yourself asking things like, what could I have done better? Or what did I do wrong? My advice to you is assess the situation, be honest with yourself, and if it was your fault, make improvements. If it wasn't, it is beyond your control. You will probably never know the reason why they decided to go someplace else, so keep moving forward. Adopt a philosophy for that each customer you lose, someone else will fill his or her seat. Optimism leads to power, while pessimism leads to weakness. After 20 years of business, I am still working on getting better. One of my mentors evaluated my performance once, and what I felt should have been a perfect score wasn't. I went back to him and asked why he had scored so critically. Not that he had given me a bad evaluation. He simply replied, "No one gets a perfect score. There's always room for improvement." I respected that because he was right. When my clients make comments, I listen. They have a way of expressing how they feel about things they dislike without being confrontational. Learn to listen. People will tell you exactly how they feel. Seek out mentors, people who are smarter than you, have more experience, and do not consider you a threat. Having great mentors is essential to your success. My first mentor in business taught me optimization, along with many other things. What's interesting is that I didn't realize it until I opened my shop. The lessons automatically kicked in. They were always there, dormant in my subconscious, waiting to be activated. That's how it works. Some lessons are there for you to use right now. And then there are those that you become aware of over time and experience. One day you just get this aha moment. As I mentioned, I'm in my 20th year of business and I'm still growing. I'm still innovating, trying new methods, and adding to what I've already built. That's what this book is about, adding on, creating more. There's so much creativity inside you. Tap into it. Look around at other entrepreneurs and be inspired. You are your only competition. Never forget that. It won't be easy, but nothing worth having is. Celebrate small as well as huge victories, and then continue to forge on. See it as coming up for air, but keep swimming.
Thank you for listening to Cut Out the Middleman, a guide to entrepreneurship, written by Eric Heckstall.